Welcome back to Mirror's Signal podcast. I'm your host, Josh Holleran, and today we are joined by Mike Fowler. Mike is senior trainer with Drive, and in today's episode, he shares a lot of his experience around being a driving instructor and a trainer. We cover a lot of topics from starting out as a trainee driving instructor to managing your business, whether that's as a PDI or an ADI, development and putting yourself in the best position you can while you're managing your business, and looking after your health as a driving instructor and how that can affect your business and your students. If you're enjoying these episodes, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button. You can also leave any thoughts or questions down in the comments. Make sure that you give the episode a like and feel free to share any of the videos. If you want any more information, you can also head to the Facebook page or the Facebook group, and they're available at Mirror's Signal Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube in the video format, you can also get the audio version, and that's available on the YouTube Music app. For now, we'll get on with the episode. I hope you all enjoy. So we are joined by Mike Fowler today from Drive. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm awesome, mate. Absolutely awesome. It's fantastic to see you, Josh. Have you had a lovely Christmas and New Year?
I had a great Christmas. Thank you very much. And I was thinking about this earlier. This is the first one I'm filming in 2024. I know people watching this will be going out a few weeks after we film, but how was yours?
It was all right. Pretty hectic. Kids, family, life. It's there's never such thing as a peaceful Christmas when you've got kids and family and all of that. But I think it just gave me time to think and reflect over what 2023 has been, what 2024 is going to be. And you end up sometimes with a to-do list as long as your arm, and you just need to prioritize things and think, right, well, these, at least if I get these 10 done, I'll be all right for 2024. So yeah, it was nice. Had some Christmas meal, had some chocolate. It was good.
It's good. I think you need that time to reset. And I'm not sure whether it is time to reset when you've got kids and family. I know when I got back to work, I'm like, this is easier. This is easier than the chaos we just had.
100%. I got to work. I got back into my office and I'm like, what's that I can hear? Absolutely nothing. That's crazy. It's weird. I thought I'd gone deaf, but I hadn't. It's fantastic.
Just got peace while we're at work.
Yeah. Especially when you're out in the car as well and you think, actually, I'm probably at more danger with kids throwing toys at each other. It's the risk management of the festive season, I suppose, isn't it?
I just need to put pretend lessons in my diary so my missus thinks I'm working. Go and get some peace in the car for an hour.
You'll get caught out. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. She might watch us back. You never know.
I was just about to say this is going on YouTube. She's going to find out, isn't she?
Yeah. She'll find out. She'll be on to you straight away, mate. On to you straight away. Ringing your imaginary pupils, saying, "Oh, and what did you do on this lesson?" A nice little recap of the lesson from imaginary Bob. But no, are you still finding it's quite busy out on the road, Josh?
Yeah, the enquiries my end seem to not be as crazy as it was the start of 2023. I think it was when we came out of COVID and everything else, it was chaos for a while. But I've not been marketing all that much. I've not done much advertising, which is what I've needed. I don't want to be working all day, every day, 6 days a week. But the enquiries don't seem as much as they was 12, 18 months ago.
Do you feel that the pitch of the enquiries changed? I think back to when, and granted, I'm not on the road full time now, hence me being in my office doing the role that I do. But when I was on the road full time with learners, there was a lot of almost like a mad dash for tests. I've got a test booked, like people were panic buying toilet roll again. Do you feel that's kind of dropped off now?
For me, it has. Again, this has all been the last 12 months. When I was getting smashed with inquiries, I was trying to take on people that had a test booked because I knew there was a backlog for the driving tests. It seems now that people just can't get driving tests. So there's not the same inquiries that I was getting. Like, I've got my test next week. Can you help me? I
Mm.
still get occasional messages,
Yeah.
but now as for driving tests, it seems to have settled down a little bit. I think people just know now that it's a 3 to 6 month wait to get a driving test, so they're planning a little bit better. But
Yeah.
it might just
Which is an
be
advantage,
me.
really, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right. You know, we spoke about the new normal. That was the kind of the tagline that was bandied around during that kind of year and a bit of life that we lost. But I suppose this is new normal. People are now planning ahead, and you know, especially when it comes to inquiries, it could be an inquiry from mum or dad of learner saying, "Well, look, he turned 17 in April. Can we get him on your waiting list?" They know that almost that 3 to 6 month wait for tests is roughly translating to a 3 to 6 month wait for lessons in some cases. So they are
Yes.
planning ahead more. They're being more proactive with theory. So it'll be fun to see if that actually results in safer drivers because they've spent more time going through the process rather than cramming it all into a week, I suppose. But, time
That's
will
an
tell on that.
interesting thought on it. Um, is not getting it rushed through. But then I know a few people that do intensive courses, and that seems to
Mm.
still work quite well for them as well. How they manage the test, I think they work backwards from the test. But for
Yeah,
me, I just now I've managed to get a grip of my diary. So I know what gaps I've got coming up, I know when they're coming
yeah,
up. And I don't try to make everything work anymore. I just tell potential clients, I'm like, this is the space I've got on this day. And if they can
yeah.
make it work, great. If they can't, then I'm not working 8 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night because I've got a
It's supply
family
and
to
demand,
see.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly, and you've got to prioritize those. You know, I remember when I think it was the first lockdown when we came back to work, and all my pupils were really eager. They kept in touch with me during lockdowns. Yeah, well, you know, my availability's changed, but I can still do either this day or this day. All got booked in apart from one, and I was like, okay, weird, but okay. You've been practicing with mum. You wanted to go to testing mum's car. Happy days, nice one. And then obviously his spot got filled because the waiting list kept ticking during the lockdown. So my diary was full. And then mum kind of rang me back and said, well, he wants to take his test in your car. And I said, he's not driven my car for like 5 months at this stage, but he's driven yours every day. So he can take it in yours. And mum goes, well, you know, let's get him fitted in at 6 in the morning. You know, if you start work at 8, you can just do a 6 till 7. And I had to wake him up for a lesson at 11 a.m. I'm not waking myself up at 5, setting off at 5:30 to pick him up for 6. But you've got to be firm on it. I think when spaces are as limited as they are now for people taking driving lessons, if you set up your stall and say these are the 2 spaces I've got, people will make it work for them. And if they don't, well, they don't, and you've tried your best. Mad as it
It
sounds.
took me a while to get to that. And I don't know whether it's something that we all go through. I mean, I've not spoke to every driving instructor, but it seems a lot of people kind of go through this while they're finding the feet the first year or two. It's for a lot of people that I've spoke to, this is the first time they've been self-employed and managing their own
Yeah,
business and their own diary. And the trap I fell into was well, I could sit at home watching TV or I could be out earning another 40, 50, 60 quid, whatever it is. So I'd go out and work. And then before I knew it, I'm like, I'm not seeing my kids 3 nights a week
doing too
because,
much.
and I
Yeah,
was just like, I can't, this isn't sustainable. So I managed to ease off evening lessons and I do occasional evening lessons now, but they're for students kind of with tests coming up and they're already on my books. I'm not taking on
yeah,
a student for a potential kind of
just to get them in
3 to 6
for
month
that
time
evening. Yeah,
period. It's just extra lessons and I'm preferring it now. I much
yeah.
prefer the job. I'm not earning anywhere near what I was when I was working all hours, but
But you're earning. You're figure your
yeah,
return on investment. No, you're getting that time with your kids. You're getting that time with your family.
and that's why I started
I'll
this.
always tell the story. We had one PDI, and I remember this as if it was yesterday. Although it was a good couple of years ago now. Was it in between the lockdown? I'm not sure when it was, but we had this one PDI, and she was really eager to get started. She was starting on the trainee license, so we said, look, you want to aim for about 10 to 15 hours of lessons. You've got your other study and your other training to fit, so on and so forth. You've got your other life. She was staying employed and so on and so forth. And she was in a really busy area. So we got her started. And she told us she had about 50 inquiries, and she'd managed to convert about 45 of them. So she had
Oh,
a
wow.
2-week diary with her other working days at her other job kind of slotted in. But then it's almost a mess of like so many pupils fitted in. And I remember her calling me one day. She said, I love training for part one. I love training for part two. I really love to be a driving instructor. But at the minute, I'm burning the candle at both ends and I can't do it. I'm not seeing my kids of a morning. I'm setting off of a morning before my kids wake up. And by the time I get back in, they're already in bed. And why would you do that to yourself? I think if you're very firm with your hours, and I would class maybe 30 to 32 hours a week as full-time hours if you want to have a life, a family, if you want to keep your spouse. You remember why you got into this job in the first place, so you can set your own hours, so you've got that flexibility. And that's a big part of the return on investment that you get. It's you got a job that you love, but also you've got the flexibility on time. You might have the specific car that you want. You might work the specific hours. You might want to take Wednesdays off so you can play golf. Well, guess what? You're self-employed. You can do. That's the return on investment. And I think when you think of it like that, it becomes a lot more than just like figures of money and things like that, because money will always come and go.
Yes.
Like COVID, so.
I think it takes a bit of time to realize that, though, doesn't it? When you first
100%.
start out.
I think especially when someone's been self-employed for the first time and they get into it and they go, wow, I can earn X per hour. And they compare that to a normal job, making X per hour. And you think, well, I can make so much more money doing this. Why wouldn't I saturate my diary with as much work as possible? And then you almost get that drop-off point where your focus goes and your drive goes, pardon the pun, and you're not giving 100% on your lessons. And if people hit that point on the training license before they get to the part 3 test, that's where it gets dangerous at that stage, because your qualification could get compromised. So,
And I didn't go on a PDI license, but I think that can be one of the challenges. I know it is for a few people that I've spoke to, because they're working, doing the job.
yeah.
They're new to the job, so it takes a lot of attention and focus to do it.
Yeah.
But you're learning as well. So you've got to learn on the job. You've also got to make time to reflect and learn after the job before you get to your next one, or in the evening. And if you're doing those long hours and doing it as a full-time job, the studying becomes a challenge because you're mentally fatigued before you even start doing your own studying.
The studying doesn't get
challenge.
prioritized because you think, well, yeah, I could hop onto this webinar and learn about X, Y, and Z, or I could make 30 quid. I could do that instead. I spoke to a PDI, I say recently. It wasn't last year, but it's the start of the year, so I'm allowed to say that. And this PDI was called Steve. Steve, if you're watching, you're a good egg. I like you, Steve. But Steve worked, I'm pretty sure he worked full-time whilst he was on the trainee license. And his full-time hours were like 12 till 8 or something like that. So he could fit in one session of a morning. So he did. He fitted in one session of a morning. And because he kept his overheads low, and because he kept his outgoings low, that was his break even. So everything he did on the trainee license was pretty much cost neutral to him. He still had his current job to pay his bills, put food on the table, keep the roof, all of that jazz. But he also benefited from all the additional training of the trainee license, as well as the additional experience, not just teaching pupils, but I don't want to say soft skills because they're not, but it's business skills essentially, isn't it? You're speaking to inquiries, you're managing a diary, you're managing your outgoings, you're making a business plan to think of how much you're working and how much you're paying out. And that's probably where people almost suffer the most, because there is a massive focus on, all right, part 3, risk management, identifying goals, doing your job, so on and so forth, all the core instructional skills, and a bit less about, well, how do you retain pupils? How do you ensure your pupils refer other pupils? What's good business practices? How are you keeping your records? And that kind of falls to the wayside. So there's almost two sides to the training to become, I say back in my days, if I'm old in the tooth, I'm not, but we used to think of part 3 as the test to get your badge. And then part 4 was business skills, because back in the old PST days, the trainee license was very rarely used. You knew an examiner was going to be your pupil. So you didn't really need your own pupil to take along. You knew it was going to be one of these 20 subjects that they were going to pick on the day. And I got parallel park, and it was in Manchester City Centre. It was horrible, mate. I don't think we even completed one, but I still learning took place. So there was a lot less of a focus on those skills back in the PST days. I think it was pre-2016, that was. Something like that. I think 2016 is when it changed. But I think now, with the trainee license and with all the skills around it that you need to use, you're probably making a more robust instructor compared to revising those 20 potential subjects the examiner can give you and just doing that. So there's two sides, isn't there? There's two sides. And I think if you work your socks off, you will make it work. But it's not something that you can't just go through part 3 training giving it half a thought, can you? Because you just won't get out the other side.
No, it does take time. And I was lucky that I had the time because I wasn't on a PDI license. Similar to, well, not similar, but like you said about Steve and being cost neutral. I got a car with dual controls. I needed a car anyway. So I got a car, put dual controls in, and I taught for free. And my thought was, if I'm teaching for free, I'm not paying for a franchise. So the car payments are kind of similar to what they was. And then I'm obviously not earning from the lessons that I'm delivering, but I don't need to do that many. And then reflecting after every lesson. And the first part 3, I didn't quite understand it because I failed my first part 3. But then the second one, I'd been out watching another driving instructor, and we was picking up each other, watching each other teaching and learning that way. And I think it was the time and the reflecting that made a big difference for me. It's one thing delivering a driving lesson, but it's another thing, I think, analyzing how you delivered that lesson and where you can improve, because we can always improve, but if you're not taking that time to look at it and be honest with yourself,
to figure out how to improve,
you're
gonna have a bad day. Someone I spoke to likened it to going to the gym. You probably go to the gym for like 2 hours a day maximum, absolute maximum 2 hours a day. If you're really keen, you do a 2-hour session, but it's the other 22 hours that matter. You can go to the gym and run for 2 hours constant on a treadmill, but if you go out and then eat a McDonald's on the way back home, it's pointless, isn't it? You know, you've got to have that time to consolidate what you've done in that training session, or when you've been delivering that session. Oh, I delivered it. I feel I did really well on this and this, but then this happened. This is the part I need to improve, and I'll improve that by doing A, B, and C. I want to make a conscious effort to do that next time I'm out delivering a session. And that's really where that marked improvement comes from.
And it's knowing what's good and bad as well, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. You know, I've had times before where PDIs have said, "Hey, can I sit in the back of your car?" And almost naively, I've gone, "Yeah, of course you can." Hop in the back, and within 10 minutes, they're just staring out the window. And I think, what are you taking from this? You know, so now if I have someone sat in the back, I'll say, "What do you want to get out of being sat in the back of that?" I'll make it very focused and very tight, and I'll say, "What do you want to get out of being sat in the back of my car?" "Oh, I want to watch how you use proactive Q&A to manage risk." Well, that's blooming specific, isn't it? Let's make it happen. So we'll be coming along to something. I'll say I'm thinking of this again as if it was yesterday. I'm saying to the pupil, what can you see ahead? What are you going to do about it? How can you make sure you're safe? PDI in the back's looking at me. Oh, great. Yeah, I'm going to write that down. Because, all right, they've got a couple ideas of Q&A, but they understand why it's being used. They understand what I'm trying to get out of the learner in terms of forward planning. And when you do it that way, you can pick up those little gems that help the puzzle pieces fall into place. Whereas if you're just, I'll sit in the back for 40 hours, you're just going to watch 40 hours of someone delivering lessons. How did you find, I'm going to almost answer your question with a question. How did you find going out delivering sessions, reflecting on yourself? Did you find that you could quite easily identify your strengths and weaknesses, or did you find it quite difficult?
Not initially. So initially I was just coming back, taking a few notes. And I think it was after my first part 3, I created my own reflective log, and it was the 17 competencies. And next to the competence, I basically had a tick box. Did I show this competence? Did I not? And then notes next to it. So if I felt like I showed it, then I tick yes, and an explanation as to how, why, and the situation. If I didn't, I'd talk about that. And then what I'd done after each lesson was put a asterisk next to the ones where I wasn't showing that competency.
Yeah.
And then after a few lessons, I started to build a picture of where I was weak. So then I could be conscious of that in future lessons. So that helped me, along with what I think is massively important. And I know a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do it, and I think they should, was watching someone deliver a lesson and using a similar method, like going through and picking up points
Yeah.
and having someone watch mine, but someone that was honest enough to give good feedback on it, good
To
and
give
bad.
that good feedback, yeah, 100%.
And not just, yeah, that was a really good lesson. Well done. High five, go get a coffee. So it
Yeah.
was watching lessons, being watched delivering lessons, and having a structure to my reflection that worked for me. I don't know
Yeah.
whether it'd work for everyone, but I found in time that worked for me because I could discover my weaknesses and focus on them.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot, I think, going into my second part 3.
I think the structure is really important because the part 3 is quite a big test. As you say, there's 17 competencies. There's so much that can go right, but there's so much that can go wrong. And it almost seems like you're in a mad dash trying to keep these 17 plates spinning all at once. But if you break it down and you structure it, then it becomes a lot easier for you to reflect on what's gone well, where there's room for improvement, how you're going to improve that. And I like, I would almost stress the importance of watching others and being watched. Yes, where you can, have your trainer sit in the back of you teaching a client, not them enroll an actual client, because that's the way you're going to act in day-to-day lessons, because you've been teaching that client in day-to-day lessons. I think also PDI is kind of buddying and watching each other, especially if you can be honest and you can say, you really messed up that route direction there, didn't you? That's why the positioning was wrong, because you told them late and then they were rushing. If you can be is brutal the right word, Josh? If you can be as brutal enough to say that, then yeah, use it as an opportunity for learning, because everything's an opportunity for learning, isn't it?
You need that. I
Yeah.
genuinely think you need that, because if you're not going to pick up those things, it might be an ADI that is sat in front of you and you don't want to mention things like that. But they're going to have a standards check at some point, and you might be the only person that sits in the back prior to that. And yeah, you might be a PDI, but if you're seeing something, because as you know, sitting in the back of a lesson, you see so much more than you do when you're sat
Yeah.
in the
Oh, yeah.
passenger seat delivering a
Oh,
lesson. You
yes.
can pick up so much. And yeah, you've got to be like, you're not just going to slate someone. It's got to be constructive and offer suggestions as to how to do
I'd
it better.
rather I'd rather one of my mates rip me apart and show me where I can improve than an examiner rip me apart and show me where I can improve whilst giving me a nice piece of paper that says fail.
See you
It's a
again
bit
in three
soft and my
months.
mate doing it, isn't it? Yeah, and see you in 3 months. Now you're waiting even longer. Now you've lost a life and you've got this pressure hanging over your head that you need to get it right next time. So, and even if you don't get it right that next time, that third attempt pressure isn't something you want to put yourself under. So, using all of those, we speak quite often about a feedback loop when we do PDI training. So, the PDI will go out and do some lessons. They'll reflect themselves, as we've just spoke about there. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How are they going to study those weaknesses? And then they'll come into what we call a PDI surgery. So it's a big Zoom call with senior trainers, with ADIs, with PDIs, and they'll discuss these areas. Even if it's something on the lines of, I've got real issues with my talk through instruction going into enough detail for something like a parallel park. Well, discuss it. Pick up some pointers, reflect, put them into practice back out in the car. So you almost go from in car to PDI surgery, back into car to reconsolidate those skills, and then you're in the car with your trainer. So now it's right. All right, I've been working on my basic talk through skills, my fault spotting skills, and my lesson adaptation. Cool. Trainer now knows these are the 3 things I'm watching out for. I'm going to pressure test that these things have been fixed. And it is very unique at that stage because everyone's areas to develop are going to be different. One of my biggest areas was don't swear. I think I've done quite well not swearing so far, but that was one of my really big areas to develop. And I'm mindful for the past 10 years plus, that's been one of my areas to develop. So, but it's so what I'm looking for, self-awareness of your own weaker areas and a willingness to work on them, and not be like, so it don't matter if I swear once or twice, it helps me build rapport with my pupils. No, it's unprofessional. Don't do it. You'll be in the habit of doing it, and then you'll do it on a standards check, and then you're having a real bad day. So yeah, having the self-awareness to realize what areas you want to develop, that's one of the biggies, I think, for PDIs and for ADIs going for a standards check. I would say for self-development in general, be the best version of you that you can be. So yeah,
There's some great points. And I think for anyone watching this that hasn't been observed or hasn't watched someone deliver a lesson, reach out to ADIs. I've said it in a few episodes now, and
yeah.
I think it's massively important. Not everyone gets the opportunity to do that through their training. I know a lot of people do role play, and that's kind of the only in-car with the trainer that they get.
Yeah.
Great. But watching a live lesson or having your lesson watched is that's where I think the learning
It's a
is going
step
to
up,
happen.
isn't
It's
it?
going to
It's
get
a
that next
step
step.
up.
Yeah.
Because it's not just what that person's spotting. It's not just what the ADI is spotting. It's not just what that trainer's spotting. It's knowing that someone's in the back of your car, putting that bit of pressure on you. You know, if you know on test day, you rock up on test day and you park up outside the test centre, you go in, you have a little natter with the examiner to come back out. You know you've had someone sat in the back of your car before. The pupil has had someone sat in the back of the car before. So as well as handle the pressure, they know that they need a bit more gas to move off because I've got a petrol car. I need that little bit more power. They know they need to be a little bit earlier on the brakes to keep it smooth. It just puts everyone at ease. We speak about and you've probably heard this before, Josh, tell me if you have, the negative, the downward spiral, where the pupil sets off on part 3 and the instructor's a bit nervous because someone sat in the back. So then the pupil gets a bit nervous that their instructor's nervous. So then they make a fault, and then the instructor doesn't spot the fault because they're really nervous. They're looking at the road ahead, and it's this negative spiral down. But the same can happen. It's a positive spiral upwards. You get in the car, you say to your pupil, all right, this is Bob, the examiner. He's going to be watching me, not watching you. So make me work hard. You know, let's have a bit of fun with it. And off you go. And you're nice and confident. So your pupil's nice and confident. So they do even better on that junction. So you give them some feedback. So now you're feeling confident they're doing well. They're feeling confident. And it's an upward spiral to success. And none of that happens unless you have that awareness of how you will react, how your pupil will react of having someone in the back of your car. And I've had times before now where ADIs, hello, Joanne, if you're watching, hello. But Joanne just says, hello, can you come and sit in the back of my car? You know, I've never met another, I've never really spoke to any other ADIs. Cool. Let's have a brew. Let's have a natter. And I still speak to Joanne 10 years later. You know, it's a nice, it's friendly to be friendly, isn't it? Because it can be a lonely job if it's not.
Yes.
So
And
that's a big one as
anyone
well.
that's not done that, like you said there, I think people can do that more. And I've said it, and I'll keep saying it. Like, reach out to local ADIs, reach out to people, and the ones that reply are going to be the ones that you want to sit and drink a coffee with, and the ones that don't reply didn't matter anyway. You wouldn't have spent any time with them.
100%, 100%. Because most ADIs who are worth their weight will reply to you and say, "Hi, are you all right? Let's have a natter. Let's say hello," and you get on well, and you build a working relationship with them. And further down the line, they might give you a couple of pupils that can't fit in. You might give them a couple of pupils that you can't fit in, whether it's availability or you're full anyway. And you start to have these colleagues who you'll see passing each other, give each other a little wave. It's great. But it also lets you know you're not alone out on the road, especially if you've gone from a job where you've got 20, 30 colleagues who you see on a daily basis to then getting in a car and all you're doing is seeing 3 pupils and then going home to your family who don't understand what it's like teaching. It can get quite lonely quite quickly. So make friends with people who are doing the same job as you. And I think especially for PDIs as well, have a PDI buddy. I remember Amy, my PDI buddy, we worked through the training together and we did in-car training together and we spoke about, oh, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. Knowing that you're not alone is half the battle almost, isn't it?
Definitely. It makes a big difference when you've got people. I don't know too many people locally driving instructors. I'm the rare person that still goes out to vape at the test center. So I don't really speak to many people there. And I work with Rick quite a lot from episode one. Me and him qualified kind of together. He went with one company, I was with someone else. We met partway through training, but I spoke to him. I talked to maybe two or three other driving instructors in the area. But I've had a couple of people sitting on lessons as well, like either wanting to be a driving instructor or they're on a PDI license and want to watch a lesson. But yeah, absolutely, come and sit. Don't base anything off what I'm doing, but you can at least sit in the back and watch a driving lesson. And yeah, there's people want to help people, and that's something that a lot of people spoke about on the episodes is coming into this industry. Generally, you want to help people, and that is for your students. But I think, without speaking for everyone, a lot of people probably want to do the same for instructors as well, especially
100%.
people coming in. Is yeah, it's no hardship for me if someone meets me somewhere, jumps in the back of the car, watches a lesson, drop you off, and then we'll send a few messages after it talking about what happened. It adds no time to me, but it might be beneficial for someone else.
Well, it's an opportunity for self-development on both parts, isn't it? If you know what you want to get out of it, if you sit in that car and go, I want to know how I act under pressure. I've got a complete stranger in the back of the car. My examiner's going to be a complete stranger on test day. How am I going to react to this pressure? How's my pupil going to react to this pressure? How am I going to support my pupil through that pressure? But also the person in the back is picking up on what they want. They might be watching you to learn about risk management. They might be watching you to work on their own fault spotting of someone in the instructor seat delivering a lesson. They might be training to become a PDI trainer. There's tons of different remits of it. But as long as you're both working towards something, and that person in the back isn't just sat staring out the window, bored, then you're going to have a productive time with it. I think as long as you keep it focused and training related, you're not going to go far wrong. But also you will naturally make those friendships along the way. I can think of test centers I've been to when I've had PDIs taking part 3 tests. Yeah, I'll come along. And I'm waiting in the waiting room. People come up to me and go, hello, who are you? I've not seen you before. Hello, I'm Mike. Nice to meet you. And we have a bit of a natter. And there are going to be some who will sit in the waiting room with their arms folded, playing on a phone, whatever. That's fine. It's no problem. But there will also be the ones who come up and say hello. And those are the ones that you want to make friends with, because they'll want to make friends with you. So why not? Why not? Why not?
And like you say, it becomes worth it later down the line. The amount of students that we pass around because someone's going auto, I don't teach auto, or I'm getting inquiries, I can't fill it. If I know that someone that I work with is looking for students, I'll send their number their way, and it all comes back around long term.
It does, doesn't it? It all comes round, and ultimately the pupil is the one who's getting the most out of it, because they might call you up and you say, oh, you know what, I don't do auto, but I know Rob down the road does auto, and if I have a little word with him, get it sorted out. So the pupil feels like they're getting something out of it. You're helping Rob out. Yeah, you're not actually getting anything out of it, but it'll come back round eventually. So be the good egg. Weird saying, but I'm sticking with it. Be the good egg.
You keep it. And that comes back to test number 4, I think. Is that what you called it? Part 4? Business management.
Part 4. Yeah, the business skills of it all. Because when things happen, I'll give an example. We've got a really weird junction near us, and they're planning on changing it at the moment. Oh, we're gonna put a cycle lane slap bang through the middle of it. It's gonna be 9 months of road work, this, that, and the other. I can guarantee there'll be driving instructors talking to each other, thinking that's going to be dangerous. It's going to be harder to teach, but someone's going to die if they do that. Now, having a collective voice is what gets you heard, especially where you're out on the road and things happen. I'm in North Manchester. We went through spates many moons ago of people throwing stuff at cars, people targeting cars with top boxes on. Don't know why, just school holidays, whatever it was. So we all kind of had a natter, and eventually someone had a natter with an examiner, and the examiners had a bit of a natter, and they put out a little thing saying, look, for the meantime, you might be better if you're doing lessons of an evening, maybe just having an L plate front and back, maybe not making yourself stand out a bit, maybe not doing that evening lesson, sticking to daytime sessions and being a little bit safer. And ultimately, we're all, I think a lot of people think instructors is me versus red versus BSM versus, and everyone's in a competition and we all scowl at each other. But we're all here to just contribute to road safety. And we're all actually on the same team, us and examiners and pupils and everyone else. We're all on the same team. So I suppose bringing it back to business management, realizing that you're not at war with anyone, realizing you're not in this mad competition. You're not going to take on 5,000 pupils. You'll get your little share for your diary and you'll be absolutely fine. And there's enough to go around. So don't stress out. Keep it relaxed. Don't feel like you
Networking
need to
makes that
fit in that
huge
9
difference.
p.m. session. Yeah, well, it does. It makes a massive difference. If you can think, I think any instructor can think of a time where they've looked at their diary and said, oh, I've got too much work on here. It's not a nice feeling. But we can also think of a time where we've gone, oh, my diary's just right. Oh, it's great. That's what you want. So, yeah, the business management skills are a fun one, I think, especially when it comes to pupils and your working relationship with pupils. Because word of mouth is still probably the leading factor in people looking for driving lessons. So it's not going to be how flash your website is or you've got a Mercedes, whatever car. It's going to be people posting on Facebook, hey, can someone recommend an instructor? If 5 people recommend Josh, guess who's getting a phone call? Josh is. You could be in a 12-year-old Nissan Micra. It doesn't matter because you've been recommended by someone. So having that at the forefront of your mind when you're delivering a session is, yeah, it's good practice for the lesson you're delivering, but it's also good practice for the business skills as well.
It's funny you mentioned that about the cars as well. I'm looking at the minute at getting a new car and a flash car, and I've spoke to a few students. And my idea is maybe a bit of advertisement. Don't know why, because I'm full. Do I need to advertise much more? And I've spoke to a few students, and none of them have come to me for anything other than I've either been recommended or they've seen my reviews online. They didn't even know what car I drove until I turned up on the day. And I had one student there was nothing against, nearly a 20-year-old Fiesta. But there was my car and 25-year-old Fiesta, grey L plate falling off, but on the back and an L plate on the front. I don't know whether they were still a learner or not. And I was stood in the car park, introduced myself to her. I was like, oh, we're ready to go. And that was the car she went to get in. No second thoughts, no nothing.
Not
So
a query
I don't think they care too much. Just he's got some good reviews. He's I've got a few bits on YouTube. Apparently that, not the podcast, another channel. That was a deciding factor for her. She researched, looked on my Facebook, saw the reviews, and then somehow found me on YouTube and was like, oh, I'll give him a go. And yeah, the car was irrelevant, the website irrelevant, just some reviews and a phone call, and a few weeks later taking lessons. But it's trying to find that balance, isn't it, with marketing, with building your business. You want to look professional, but what is professional? Is it all the CPD that you've done that your students aren't necessarily going to be aware of? Is it the brand new car that you've got? And I think people have got to find their own way within it all.
Yeah. People have to find their own USP in this market, and everyone's going to have a USP, whether it's customer service, and I think it should always be customer service, whether you've got the bigger car, whether you've got the most CPD. One of my points when I qualified and I set up self-employed, I just turned 22. So I qualified when I was 21. So my USP was the fact I was really young. I was really young for a driving instructor. So the guys coming from college, the guys who've left college and perhaps left university, I'm a similar age to them. They really enjoyed lessons and therefore recommended more along those lines. I was just thinking then as you were speaking about like cars and marketing, when you go to the barbers, you don't ask the barber what brand of clippers they use. You don't particularly care, do you?
No.
You're going after the barber rather than the equipment, and they're getting driving lessons. Could be in an old car, could be in a new car. I think sometimes there's a potential that new cars can intimidate. And if you've got a car, think of my car has a hill start hold. It has this forward collision thing that beeps when you get close to something. The typical learner's first car isn't going to have that. Is it necessary for me? Not really. Maybe, all right, okay, I do more PDI training than learners. When I last taught learners full time, did I have a car that had all of that? No. Did I need it? No, of course I didn't. And I remember when I got my first car with a reversing camera, I was like, this is cheating. I'm gonna have to do something about this. And, because it got the camera there, and it's really easy now to do some of these maneuvers. But I think the USP always has to be you as an instructor, your skills, whether you can put someone at ease, whether you can give them a learning experience, just you as a person. Do they enjoy lessons? Do they enjoy being in the car with you? If they do, they're going to recommend other people. Because I think any instructor who's been doing this job maybe longer than 2-3 years will almost see like a family tree down the diary of, oh, I had Ollie, and Ollie recommended these two, and then she recommended one, and he recommended this, and that's the way you build a diary organically. And those are the types of learners you want, because they buy into you. They're not going to cancel their lessons last minute. They're not going to just give up learning to drive. They're invested in you. They're invested in their future. They see themselves passing their test with you. So all of a sudden at that point, you're not really fussed about advertising because you've got a loyal pupil. You just need a full diary of them now. And you get it just by being yourself. If yourself is good, of course. If it's not, do some CPD, work on yourself, work on your customer service skills. But yeah, I think there's definitely things. I mean, if you ever seen the Lamborghini, that bright orange Lambo with L plates on the top of it, because like £100 a lesson, I think it is.
I've
It's a nice
seen that. I don't know whether is it just a picture. I've seen the picture, I think, on
It's a marketing thing,
socials.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got to, I mean, I'd love to have a lesson in that, but I can't see someone block booking 40-50 hours and passing their test in the thing. It's a gimmick. It's not a USP. You gotta have something unique about why should someone pick you over someone else. And the way you're going to get a market share anyway, you're going to get enough coming in your diary. So how did you find the first year? Because for yourself, you mentioned you weren't on the training license, so you kind of qualified. You had a couple of pupils who you were teaching for free. Did you then just start kind of charging them and building your business that way? How did you do it?
I slowly started charging them,
Yeah.
and then they slowly dropped off. One or two of them passed the driving test, one or two
Yeah.
didn't. And I think if anyone's going to go on that route and teach for free, I think some people appreciate it, some people don't.
Yeah.
And that was something that I learned the hard way, and I expect most people that go through it probably do. So I started straight away, basically from 4 or 5 students to I was in a job, so I was teaching 1 or 2 lessons a day, like afternoons and evenings if I could get away.
Yeah.
And it was after COVID. So it was when we had 2 years
The big
worth of
boom.
students that wanted lessons yesterday. So I was very fortunate with the timing of it that there were so many students. So the gaps that I had filled quite quick. And then as part of my resettlement through the military, you get X amount of days off. So I was taking them 2 days a week for, say, 3 months. And each time a day filled, I could take another day off and fill that day. So when I left the military, I basically just transitioned to a full-time diary. But it was in a very fortunate time. I had no real support. I had no franchise, no marketing. I obviously couldn't start a business really because I wasn't a driving instructor. I wasn't a trainee. So I didn't have a Facebook page. I was doing it all through my personal page. And then as soon as I passed my part 3, that was when I started building the socials and
When
all
you
that
got
kind of
busy
stuff.
at that point and started building your socials up, and because I
Yeah,
think a lot of it now will be through social media compared to just websites, won't it? And there's the
it's
bits
an
of
odd
Google
one.
and the bits of
I've only just built a website, and it's been on my to-do list for what, 2 years, and I've had a couple of enquiries through the website. It's a free one. Well, I say free. It cost me about £1.50 on GoDaddy. So it was worth the 2 hours playing around because I've got
yeah.
some online presence. But it was all through Facebook. And generally, most of my students came from their parents inquiring. So that was where all my marketing was when I was doing it, was at the parents, because my thought initially was 17-year-olds aren't going to be paying themselves. Whereas now I've built the business, I know a lot of them do. They're out working, and whether they pay it 100% themselves, but a lot are coming direct now. But I think that's from referrals. I didn't have referrals 2 years ago. Now I do, and
Now you
the
do.
students
And
are
it's a
coming
game changer, isn't
direct.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's massively important. And now thinking back, when you said about the tree, I've got students and they recommended. So this student
Yeah.
probably doesn't know the first student that learnt with me,
Mm.
but they've all recommended and it's come all the way down. And I offer, I don't know whether it's quite a big one, but I offer quite a lot of money off a lesson if they refer a friend to me and they don't take a refund after the first lesson. So my marketing has always been, if you don't like your first lesson, you can have your money back. So I don't
Yeah.
agree with free lessons. For me, I don't want to give something out for free anymore, but I'll give you a
It
refund.
destroys the value of it, doesn't it?
Mm.
If there's an implied cost, then the user perceives value out of that thing. So
So that's what I've done. I offer a full refund after the first lesson if they don't want to stay with me, and I'm happy with that. And if they don't take that refund, then the person that recommended them gets a big discount off their next lesson. So that's how I've been running it. And I've not done an ad campaign on social media for quite a while now because the
I don't think I
referrals
ever
come
did
through.
an ad campaign on social. I think social media was just my presence. I did something very similar to yourself. I did a refer a friend scheme, and I gave out just a little A5 flyer, and people came. I say I'm going back before the days of apps now, but people had a hard, well, there's a soft folder, like a little manila folder with like their notes in it and a little bit of a starter pack I gave them when they started. So I just gave them this little flyer that said, if you recommend a friend and they block book, you'll get £20. Not £20 a lesson, not just a £20 note. And I had a picture of a £20 note there. I thought I'd go all out, why not? And I did it because I was looking at my diary and I was like, right, I've got 5 tests coming up at the end of this month and they all are going to pass. They're all top drivers. I'm like, I'm going to lose a day of work here. I hadn't planned ahead very well. So I started this recommend a friend scheme. And in that week, I think I had about 24 inquiries through people who had this. And I was like, I can't take all of these people on. You know what I mean? So I took a couple on, started a waiting list. And then when people started and block booked, the person who recommended them, I just stuck a £20 note on the steering wheel. That's yours because you recommended someone. And it was such a market employee because they then tell their friends that they got £20 for recommending someone. So then they'd recommend even more people. Oh, I want to make £20. I'll spend a block book of lessons to get started with you so I can then recommend more. And it took off a lot more than I thought it would. I was like, I'm paying £20 for a pupil who's going to spend 40 hours of lessons with me. Well worth it. And is then going to recommend more people as well. Winner. So I think that was probably better money well spent compared to like an ad campaign or something like that on social media. But
Yeah, I
with all
mean,
things, it's got to be in moderation, hasn't it? It's got to be in
yeah,
moderation.
I've never spent a huge amount on socials. I don't know whether you've looked at them recently, but I think it was either £10 or £20 and you can spread it over a couple of weeks. And to get
Yeah.
started, because I didn't know anyone, I was on my own. I've done a few of them, put the brackets, target the parents.
Yeah.
Whereas now I like the idea of just giving them cash as well, because if you give discount off a lesson and it's not them paying for the lesson,
It's less incentive.
yeah. Whereas
Best way
if
to
they're getting the
motivate a
money.
17-year-old is cash. Motivate anyone with cash. It's technically bribery, I think. You gotta be careful with those things. You gotta be careful, Joe.
We'll
I
clip
remember,
this
I
bit
think,
out.
especially with we'll cut. Leave it in. Leave it in. I remember with I had a lad called Niall. He passed his test, and you get the photo, you put it up on Facebook, and Facebook came up and said, "We're going to give you a free £20 spend on advertising to show you what advertising is." I thought, all right, give it a go. And his post of him passing his test was seen by over 10,000 people in the little catchment area, and I was like, that's a crazy amount of people, for what the ad spend is. I don't know. That was many, many years ago. So I'm assuming their ad kind of payments will have changed and the way they run advertising campaigns will have changed. But if you are someone, like you described, where you're almost going from zero to building a business, that's something I could recommend because a lot of young people are on Facebook. If they're not on Facebook, their parents probably are as well. And as you say, you can target who's going to see that advert. So you do get a lot of control over it. A lot of control indeed.
You do, and it is a challenge getting started. And even if you're with a franchise, you've got access to the students. But like we was talking about earlier, you've got to find what works for you with your diary, your life, other commitments. And yeah, I think people can sometimes do too much. And then
Yeah.
this, like if you're a PDI at least, but this isn't the end. Like you've not got a job yet. You
This
need
is
to
just the
pass the
beginning.
part
This
three.
is just the beginning. Yeah. And there's so many people who I think they'll get out on the pink badge. They'll get out as a trainee, make a decent amount of money. I think, cool. Let's load up the bags. Let's go for it. Let's load up the diary. And then earning is prioritized over learning. And that's a dangerous spot to be. I know many a PDI who's now qualified who I've spoke to us, right, cool, you've passed part three. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Now it's similar to what you said, how you transition from one job into another job. Is it day by day? Is it, all right, you can drop down to 3 days a week now and do 3 days a week of learners. And then maybe when you get to 4 days a week of learners, you can knock the other job on the head completely, spend the rest of your free time building your client base so you can have 5 days a week. But I think you've got to, if I was to give any bit of advice to a PDI, especially any of our PDIs, get in touch with your trainer, with a mentor, with someone who can help you through that process. Because I would imagine for yourself, Josh, going through that was pretty complex and pretty scary, almost thinking I've got to get this right, otherwise I'm not going to make it. Is that a fair thing to say?
It is. But I don't know, I jump into things and I just
Yeah,
go all in as we can see from this. No contacts in the
yeah.
industry, never done a podcast
Smash it.
before, nothing. Jump straight in, give it a go, see what happens. But like there was a worry early on
Mm.
because I've gone from a salary, being in the military, like I've got a guaranteed job for the next X amount of years, a pension. I know where I'm going to be going. I know what I'm going to be doing. And my partner's left. She was in the RAF. She's left. So she wasn't working at the time, I don't think. So she wasn't working. We've got a mortgage, three kids. And I'm like, right, I'm handing my notice in with my salary job and I'm going self-employed.
Yeah, it's a leap of faith, isn't it? It's a
Mm,
leap of faith in that position. I know with a lot of the PDIs we speak to, we almost encourage them to plan ahead and think, what does life look like on the trainee license, and then what does life look like as an ADI? What are you going to achieve in those first 6 months? What are you achieving those first 12 months in terms of transitioning into a full-time driving instructor? Because for most people, it won't happen overnight. Even if you've got to, as you say, giving you notice, you've got a 4 week notice period. How are you going to spend those 4 weeks? What does your diary look like for those 4 weeks? What does it look like after those 4 weeks? Are you going to have enough to keep a roof over the kid's head? Or are they going to sleep in a box on the drive? Maybe the box on the drive, who knows? So, prior planning prevents a poor performance, doesn't it? You thought I was going to say something else, St. Josh. But yeah, prevents a poor
I was
performance.
waiting for it. I've
Love
had
it.
to stop swearing and we'll call it the five P's instead of the six P's, is it?
Yeah, something like that. We like a good
Yeah.
mnemonic, don't we?
I've not heard it for a while. We can do mnemonics. Maybe another time, eh?
Yeah, that'll be part two of this podcast, I think, on MLA's multi-letter acronyms, because there's loads in the
FLAs.
driving instructor. Yeah, oh yeah, there's tons in the driving instructor world, and I think if you understand them, they work well. But if you try and if you try and overcomplicate things for the sake of overcomplicating things, especially as a PDI, that's where it can come undone as well. We've talked about the business skills and how sometimes PDIs can struggle on that front. Sometimes ADIs can struggle on that front. Granted, we've had a very good, as an industry, we've had a very good couple of years
Mm.
post events, and supply of learners massively outweighing how many lessons we can do. But that's only going to go on for so long. So we then have to think of how we're going to prepare ourselves otherwise. So interesting thoughts if you're a independent ADI or recently qualified PDI as to how you're going to ensure you don't sink, how you ensure you swim. Swimming's
That
better.
business mindset, isn't it?
100%. 100%. And I think you've got to live it and you've got to breathe it. You can't think, oh, yeah, Friday, I'm going to knock off for 2 days, because you might have inquiries coming in. You might have emails. Something goes wrong with your car. You've got to get it fixed by Monday because someone's got a test. You've got to be switched on 24/7. And you owe it to your pupils. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to your family who need you to have that job to pay the bills. And if you don't, then you take your eye off the mark. You end up like I did, where you've not planned ahead and you've got 5 guys coming up for test, and you think, wow, that's my diary's gonna be pretty shy after that, isn't it? What am I gonna do? So you've got to be 2 steps ahead. You've got to be 2 weeks, 2 months ahead of yourself in this game to make sure that you're gonna survive.
I think that's one of my downfalls is I'm not as proactive with the business as I could be, but I don't get too stressed, which I think helps. I don't panic about much. My car was off the road, I think, for about 3 or 4 days a while back. And my missus was a bit panicked because I can't earn. We're going to have a big bill going out to fix the car. She was a bit panicked, and I'm like, it'll be all right. We'll figure it out. There's nothing I can do about it. So I'm not going to worry
It
about it.
becomes
I'm going to
almost a
enjoy my day off.
trade-off. Yeah, well, yeah. You look at the bright side. You get some unplanned time off. Go and
Yeah.
spend some time with the kids. Do whatever you want to do. But there's only so much planning ahead you can do. You can't plan for everything. You have to have
No.
a rough idea. But the more rough that idea is, the more flexible you can be. If this long-term idea is so fixed and rigid that it has no wiggle room, something will go wrong at step 12 of 85. And then you end up in deep water with no way to swim. You've got to be limber, loose, rubber goose. You've got to be flexible, and you've got to, like you say there, adapt to whatever's happening. Same way you'd adapt on a lesson, wouldn't you? You've got to adapt to in life of, right, my car's off the road. I ain't working until at least next week, Monday. I'll go to the park then, shall I? And just go stretch my legs. Why wouldn't you? And you got to take that unplanned time off nicely, because it's been gifted to you by the world. Go and stretch
That's
your
it.
legs. Go
And
to the park.
accept it. It is what it is. And that's part of being self-employed as well. It's
Massively.
it has its perks, but there are some downsides that come with it, and that's one of them. You can't have a spare car sat on your drive for if your car goes wrong. And that's why I always try and keep a buffer as well, financially,
Yeah.
make sure that I've got a pot of money somewhere to cover for instances like that. If my car completely dies, I'm in trouble. But if it's fixable, I should be all
Then you're
right.
good.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it comes down to business. For a lot of people who haven't run a business before, like I spoke to people before who've worked for a full year, made loads of profit, spent all that profit, and then a tax bill comes round. And especially because we're recording this in January, the tax bill comes round and go, what am I going to do? How's that happened? Now, where am I going to get this money? If you're putting aside stuff into an emergency fund, you're putting stuff aside into a tax account and not even looking at it until January the next year, and you go, oh, my tax bill's 800 quid. I've saved up 1,600. Cool. I'll pay my tax bill. I'll go on holiday for a week, and then the rest I'll just leave there in case my clutch goes, or in case I need a new tire, or whatever it is. Cars aren't cheap. I paid 300
No.
quid for a tire before Christmas, partly because I was on the M1. I had no choice. Someone had to pick me up and put me somewhere else, and someone else had to come with a tire. I said, what brand is it? He said, the brand we've got in the shop. I said, I'll have that one, please, because I wanted to go home. But, you've got to have a plan for that. How I broke down on the M1. I could have easily flapped at that point. Oh, I'm not going to get home. I'm going to miss this. Oh, I'm going to do? I have to ring this person. Or I say, right, what do I need to do? I'm going to need to call this. I'm going to need to get this. I'm going to need to make sure this happens. Cool, go with it. I've planned ahead enough that I have that money there. Right, if there's an emergency, that's there to bail me out. I can restock that up. Same way you would do in life. If your fridge goes, you've got no food, have some money aside for a takeaway and some money aside to get onto Curry's and get a new fridge. Maybe not Curry's, maybe there's better fridge outlets out there. Fridgeoutlet.com, you mentioned websites before, get that one. Someone will buy that one. Fridgeoutlets.com. But, it's that planning. You can't plan ahead so far that it's rigid, but you've got to be ready and adaptable for what comes up. Because that's the joy of being self-employed. Every day is different. It's not monotonous. You're dealing with all these challenges. Some of them are going to be challenges. Some of them are just nice surprises. But you've got to be flexible enough to deal with whatever your day throws your way. Is it a bit of traffic? Is it a road closure? Is it a lesson where we can't go down that road anymore? Be flexible. Not just on your lessons in life. Be adaptable. Be a good human.
And then you have less stress, which
Yeah.
we all want. But do you guys with Drive, we've had gone off on some good kind
We
of
went off on a good
tangents there.
tangent there, didn't we?
Yeah. So with Drive, is the business management side of it, is that something that is part of the package? Is it something that you
Yeah, so
do? Because I think it can get missed from some people.
it does get missed quite often with a lot of PDI training, and it's a big part of PDI training. We encourage PDIs to do what we call a mini business plan. So we get them to think of what their circumstances are, whether they're using their own car, which majority are, all right, pedals, break that down across 12 months, insurance, in terms of how much that's gone up. Insurance itself has gone up this year, just in terms of insurance in general. But upgrading to PDI insurance, fuel, other, maintenance, not so much depreciation, but all right, I'm going to put some aside for if I need a new tire, if I need X, Y, and Z. And we get them to work out their rough weekly outgoings. Now, as an argument, let's say that's £300 a week, just because it makes my maths easy. So for their car, for fuel, insurance, everything else. They then work out how many lessons they're aiming for. So they're thinking, right, I've got about 15 hours a week spare. So I'm going to do 12 hours of lessons. I'm going to do 2 hours of a PDI surgery and 1 hour of nattering to the training team or me or whoever about the business side or the admin side of stuff. So that's the time I can budget to the trainee license alongside working my job, picking up my kids, getting them fed, life. I go bowling club of a Thursday or whatever people do. I'm not cool. I don't go to any of these clubs. I'm never invited. But around your life, how does the trainee license fit into your life? And if you know you can budget 12 hours of lessons a week to practice, to consolidate your skills, to fit in your training, to work towards passing the test, you're charging 30 an hour. You're making, what's that going to be? 360 a week. You're paying out 300. You're making £60 a week for training. You're getting your training, you're getting your time with your trainer, you're getting time on surgeries, you're getting time with our training support team, and you're still making a profit. It's not a massive profit. It doesn't need to be, because you're learning rather than earning. And people look at that and go, okay, I kind of see where you're going with it. People kind of look at it and go, I don't quite see. I thought I was going to be making 40k a year, like it says on Facebook. I say, just hear us out. And then they get started on the trainee license and they realize that 10, 12 hours on top of everything else they're doing is actually quite a lot. And it's really just using those 10 hours to practice, I've got Bob tomorrow morning, Saturday morning lesson, and I'm going to be focusing on proactive Q&A to make sure he doesn't get things wrong. He's going to be looking at approach speed on roundabout. So I really need to be spot on with that. How we spoke about reflection before. The reflection allows you to, right, how am I going to use these 12 hours of training time before I get to my next in-car session, before I get to my next webinar with a senior trainer? And that's what really accelerates the process to people passing part 3 first time. Passing part 3 first time, but also just being better instructors, passing with a good mark, being more confident in their own skills. And as you say, not being stressed. They're flexible, they're adaptable, they can handle whatever's thrown at them, whether it's a pupil missing a mirror or a puncture. They can handle it. So yeah, we do put a lot into that mini business plan, and we kind of coach them through it. We do it live with them on a webinar, and we say, right, let's do some maths, let's work it out. And a lot of them, when they do that, they realize, actually, I don't need to break my back. I'm not going to need to do 25 hours a week on top of all my other commitments whilst I'm on the trainee license. Now, obviously, when they pass and they want to become full-time, they then realize, well, look, let's still keep our overheads low. Just because you've passed doesn't mean you need to go out and get a Mercedes AMG and stick some pedals in it. Keep your overheads low and, use that to build your client base. Yeah, if you're 18, 24 months down the line, go for it. Get a new motor. Obviously, at the minute, all the PCP stuff's in the news, isn't it? Where they've been smashing people with finance and interest and everything else. But if you want to look into getting a new car, get a new car. Treat yourself, but make sure it works with your business plan. The business plan becomes the guide, the cheat sheet, if you like, to ensuring that you're not stressed about that. You've done the maths and it works. Because I think a lot of people do that and they go, okay, my break even is like 8 hours. Someone always goes 7.5 hours. I go, okay, where are you teaching half a learner from? Where are you getting half a learner? What's happening with that? So, people work out, okay, my break even is about 8 hours. I've got 5 pupils doing 2 hours a piece. I'm over where I need to be. I don't need to stress out about it. I can just focus on learning for these next 6 months, make sure I get that part 3 spot on. And they do. And then they go, oh, yeah, it worked that. But yeah, it does, doesn't it? So, yeah, the business planning side of it, I think previously, when we go back to back in the day, 2013, 2012, the part 3 was separate to running a driving school. Whereas because the trainee license is a lot more, I mean, we did some freedom of information. I think about 90% of people who pass a part 3 use a trainee license. I think that might have been our guys, actually. 90% of our guys coming through use a trainee license to pass their part 3. So having the teaching skills and the business skills amalgamated together makes sense, because you can't really have one without the other. If you're a fantastic instructor but you've got no pupils, you won't succeed. If you've got loads of pupils but you're delivering rubbish lessons, you guys are going to find someone else to teach them. So you've got to have both. Rather be, 7s across the board than a 10 out of 10 here and a 4 out of 10 there. Just doesn't make sense, does it? So yeah, we put quite a lot into it in terms of, yes, the business plan, not so much converting inquiries, but how to speak on the phone, how to put someone at ease, because a lot of people getting lessons are going to be nervous. What to do when you meet that client for the first time? How do you build rapport? Where is the line? These people ultimately aren't your friends. You can be friendly with them, but these are paying clients. You want to treat them as such. Be professional. Be relaxed. I suppose we're not very professional, are we, Josh? We've been nattering on for hours now, but we are quite professional when we're in the car, and we can put people at ease, and we can speak with authority when we need to, but also speak with empathy when it's needed. All the kind of the nuances of communication come into reassuring your client, which comes into business skills ultimately. So we put a lot, we do a full day induction with our guys before they get started on the trainee license. So it's broken down into 7 or 8 sections of, diary management is one. How are you going to organize your time? How much time do you need between lessons? Where's your working time coming to all of this? And little kind of exercises to prove they can do it. And then they do it for real life with their own diary, with their own pupils, with their own phone calls. Oh, hello. Do you want some? Not do you want some lessons, but hello, it's Mike from Mike's Driving to whatever it is. How are they going to speak on the phone, and all of that comes together. They can practice the business skills whilst practicing the teaching skills, whilst training. So then once they've passed, right, you've got this baseline now. Let's see how far you want to push it.
There's
Keeps them busy.
Yeah, there's a need for it. I had to figure it all out the hard way. No business skills, never run a business before, and all of a sudden, self-employed, starting my own. And those are the things that I hadn't really thought about. Responding to inquiries, answering the phone. I still now, when I answer the phone, it's hello. And I forget that it might be a client. And they're like, is that the driving instructor? I'm like, yeah, sorry, Josh Holloway speaking. How can I help?
Yeah.
Because I had a business phone and a personal phone. And I started giving students my personal number because I'd forget. And the only one that I knew off the top of my head was my personal number.
Yeah.
So now everything is my personal number. And then I have a separate phone that only my partner has the number to. So if I want to go fishing or if I want to go out with the kids, the only phone that gets taken is the one that no one can get hold of me apart from the missus. And to be fair, she's the only person that ever rings me apart from students anyway. So it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
But when I want to go,
I just want to stress what you said there, Josh, because I used to have, where is it? I've had this phone for years. It takes 2 SIM cards. I've had a personal number. I've had a business number. The best thing I did was get 2 separate handsets. So one can stay here. If I want to go out, as you say, with the kids or whatever, and have that bit of time, spend time with my family, decompress, active relaxation. I don't need to, that phone's going. I need to bring them back ASAP. I can mentally relax myself before and recharge myself before coming back into the game. So yeah, having those 2 handsets is a biggie. I think it's that quality of life, isn't it? quality of life.
I
They
love
both have
it.
the same wallpaper on them. I confuse them.
They look like the same phone then when you showed us. But yeah, it's because I find myself, we done it a few weeks ago. This is being filmed just after Christmas. We went shopping. I can't remember whether it
Yeah,
was New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, but we go out for breakfast, go to the shops, just a bit of family time, spend their Christmas money. And I didn't take my phone. I'm like, there's going to be inquiries coming in. There's going to be messages. There's going to be Facebook. There's going to be this. So I take my other phone. And we got to the shops, and the miss had been trying to ring me for like 20 minutes, half an hour. Couldn't find me. I've got the kids. She's doing whatever. She's like, I couldn't get hold of you. I'm like, no, because I've got my other phone. She was like, oh, I didn't even think to ring that one. But I was finding myself checking the phone. There's no apps
yeah,
on it. There's no nothing, no social media. No one can get hold of me. But occasionally I'd have checked it, checking for notifications. So I think even
yeah.
subconsciously, we check the phone when we don't need to. So even if you've got two
Becomes a
SIM
safety
cards and you can
blanket,
silent one,
doesn't it?
yeah. And then after half an hour, I no longer take my phone out to check it, and then I'm properly switched off, not worried
Well, it
about
allows you to
anything, just
be
enjoying time.
present in what
Mm,
you're doing. I remember times. I remember when back when I was single, I say, before I was married, the first thing I'd do is I'd wake up, check my phone. Has anyone text me overnight? Have any of my lessons changed? Are there any road closures I need to know about? I want to be hyper prepared for today. Whereas now I can very much take it at my pace. I think as well for instructors, ultimately, we can't use the phone while we're out on the road. I see many instructors out on the phone. I'm not that popular. Even with inquiries, I'm not that popular. I don't need to be glued to the thing. Just put it down for Pete's sake. Who cares? And I think definitely in terms of just quality of life, it's just better without. Do you remember the old
yeah.
the old flip phones where all you could do was call and text on them? They're awesome. I'd love one of them again. They're fantastic. But I don't think they even work nowadays, do they? With 7G or whatever up to nowadays, all the Gs.
And do you know what's so hard with new phones as well? It automatically logs into so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've already got Facebook, Instagram, emails, all of that kind of stuff. So that's why the phone that I now use as my spare, I don't have any of the apps so that I
Yeah.
can't log into it and I'm not getting notifications. And it does make a big difference when you're out and you completely switch off because
I think as well, like I think to weekends, I'm a big believer now in turning my work phone off on weekends. If I know I'm expecting something of a weekend, I'll keep it on. If I know someone's got a part three test on a Saturday, they want to call me after it, yeah, 100%. But other than that, if I know I'm going to Blackpool with my little one, that phone's gonna stay away. And I realise after it, when I turn that phone back on, and I might get, say, 30 messages, probably only 5 of them are like necessary ones. The others are just junk that comes in. I'm not saying people are junk, but you think, oh, I've got so many emails, got so many this. Actually, I'm going to work through and prioritize and see what's there. What do I need to get hold of? And I think there's a joy of just switching off. I think the poison of these smartphones is that we're always connected to something, and it's better just not to be. Better not to be
yeah.
connected to something. The joy of being connected is that you can disconnect. If you're constantly connected, you lose all the benefits. So, yeah, don't be afraid to be present. You're going to need to anyway when it's your driving lessons. So, let the dopamine stay on the phone. There's only so many little 30-second videos you can scroll through. It's not going to change your life. It's going to be great without. So,
It's that dopamine hit though, isn't it?
yeah.
We're not going down that one as well. But it's so addictive. It's
Mm.
terrible. And I've not done it much this year because the weather's not been great. But I got back into fishing just for that, like you say, disconnect. Take the kids as well. They used to love it. But no phone, well, spare phone, no social media, just out in the fresh air. No one can get hold of us. Time
It's you
together.
time.
Yeah.
It's self-care. You've got to take, I think it was Christmas 22, it would have been. I got some new pajamas. They were great. I sat with little and on me. She's got matching pajamas I've got, and I thought, I'm putting on weight. I don't like it. So I started running. I'm gonna go running each morning. And every morning, 5 a.m., do a PFA, 2 miles, get it in. And every single morning, all the way through 2023, even now, I'll go running 5 in the morning. And people think I'm weird for it, but I've never felt better because I don't have my phone with me. No one bothers me. That's my bit of peace and quiet. And it means no matter what day it is, there's a bit of peace and quiet for me to recharge and reflect and relax. Because you do, don't you? You'll be fishing And yeah, you want to catch the big fish, but you're also thinking, that was a fun day, Wednesday, wasn't it? A lot of things happened on Wednesday. It's your time to actually like contemplate what's happened. Otherwise, life just happens to you rather than you doing things deliberately through life.
Yes.
You've got to take that moment to think about it. And I think, pardon the pun, as a driving instructor, we can fly through life. You can go, I've got 8 hours worth of lessons today, fly through it all. You don't know whether you're coming or going. You need that time. Whether you've been in this job 1 year or 10 years, you need that time to actually think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, where can you improve, how could I have done that lesson even better? How could that person have taken more from that session we did? If you're not thinking like that, you're not moving forwards, you're moving backwards because everyone else is moving forwards at a quicker pace than you. So you owe it to yourself and your pupils to look after yourself. Someone, I think it was Bob Marley once said, I don't know why I'm quoting Bob Marley, but he said that you'll put like the premium unleaded fuel in your car and then you'll eat at McDonald's. Why don't we look after ourselves the same way? You drop your phone, you panicked out. Oh no, I've broken the screen. Why don't we look after ourselves the same way? Why do we think that we as humans can just run on empty? We can't. So I know we're going like philosophical here, but you got to look after yourself to ensure you're delivering the best lessons possible, don't you? And yeah, fishing's nice. I wish I could go fishing, but yeah, good way of looking after yourself, like Josh.
Yeah, it is. It just my hobby is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so I'm training every morning, 6 o'clock class. So I get that done before I go and deliver some driving lessons. So when my students aren't trying to kill me, I've got someone else trying to do it at 6 o'clock in the morning. But that I stopped doing it for a while. I took about 3 months off, not intentionally, but just life, work, everything, and I started to feel it. I started to notice that I wasn't as sharp, I wasn't feeling as healthy. And that was then when I was like, I've got to make time. I've got to get back to it and look after myself. And it comes back to, like you said, about your phone. You break your phone, you get a new phone. But if we're not looking after our body, we can't go and get a new one.
Yeah, you won't get one of them at phones for you, or Tesco Mobile, or whatever else you got nowadays. You got to. There's an instructor near me. I know he won't mind me saying this, but he's on tablets for like blood circulation, just because he spends so long sat in the car. He's a young lad. He's like me and you. He's young, and you've really got to. I mean, look, we look after our car, don't we? We get spanking new tires. We make sure the brakes are sorted. We make sure we've got screen wash before a test, and we make sure it's MOT'd and tax and all that. We need to look after ourselves the same way. We're the most important component of making that lesson work. You just have car and learner, it's not going to work. If you have car, learner, and us, then you'll be okay. So yeah, you got to look after yourself to allow you to look after others, especially when you're out on the road.
Then it comes with risks as well, sitting still all day. And I was guilty of it. I'd be sat in the car, darting across town, not getting out when I get to my students, flicking through Facebook, eating my food, sat in the car. And the only time I get out of the car was to switch seats to go around to the passenger side. So that's now where my diary's been broken down. I do a lot less lessons and I don't spend as long in the car between lessons. I make sure that I've got a big enough gap to get home or at least go for a walk around somewhere to grab some decent food, because sitting cramped up all day, not moving, eating junk food, holding the toilet breaks, that's not good
that's
for you.
A biggie. That's a biggie. If when we had the lockdowns, I was so confused that I could go to the loo whenever I wanted. Like it was a luxury for me. Like I was only ever about 30 steps away from a toilet. I was like, this is great. This is mental. This is like celebration time. But you've really got to, I think, especially with the lockdowns as well, when people were working, stop. That was a really good opportunity for everyone to reflect on, wow, I can go out walking now. I can use the loo whenever I want. I can cook myself a nice, healthy, some like chicken and salad or whatever people want to eat. I don't know. People have all sorts of dietary requirements. But that opportunity to actually, let's just stop the rush and think through what I'm doing here. How can I optimize? How can I make it better? The same way we would do on a lesson, do it for life. So I know we're going incredibly philosophical here, but you've got to, because if you don't, I mean, how many people do you read of who, I don't want to say die prematurely, but have health issues which are exacerbated by sitting down for long periods of time? People who are truck drivers, people who are train drivers, people who are in offices, we're sat down for a good number of hours a day as driving instructors. you've got to work that in. So you can't, oh yeah, I'll just, rather than be active all day, I'll just sit down all day, because there's going to be consequences further down the line. There's no if, are, and but about it. So yeah.
What's that saying? I don't know who said it, but it's along the lines of like getting out and exercising is hard, but
Yeah.
not exercising and not looking after your health is also hard. And it's just choosing one. And I'm quite passionate about my health, not so much my diet. My diet can come or go unless I'm cutting weight for a competition, and then I have to be strict on my diet and make sure I'm on weight. But fitness wise, like training, and I noticed the difference.
Yeah.
And I massively noticed it when I stopped for a while. And now I'm back training, feel much better, and I've got more energy. So
Yeah.
I'm delivering better lessons. I'm admin wise, still no better. There's still so much that I need to do. But when I'm out in the car, I'm a lot better. And then getting a puppy, didn't realize how cold it gets this time of year when I'm walking around
Yeah.
and freezing, but
Oh
the dog needs
yes.
to go out.
Mm.
But I like this. And yeah, I think we can do, especially as instructors, like sitting in the car. I noticed it having left the military and been active to sitting in the car for
Yeah.
the last 18
100%.
months. I'm like,
I
I
think
need to
especially,
get out.
you've said there, you've reflected. If you think about it, you've reflected on what you've done well, where you can improve. That's what we should all be doing, just in general in life. We owe it to ourselves to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. You owe it to your learners to deliver the best lessons. And if you can deliver better lessons by actually making time for breakfast in the morning, it's not something training related, but it's going to improve your standard of lessons. If you can look after yourself, you find yourself sharper on lessons, you're watching more intently, you're picking up on little things like non-verbal body language. You're only going to do that if you're, absolutely on point. If you're sat there going, oh, skip breakfast again, didn't I? I'm a bit hungry now. I didn't really sleep well last night, and I pulled my leg when I was walking the dog this morning. You're not going to be delivering. You wouldn't do it for a part 3 test, would you? You wouldn't just skip breakfast for do you get what I mean? So you've got to reflect, and you've got to really be deliberate in your habits in life to make sure you are the best. Like I'm not so much monitor what I eat, but I'll know I only have 2 meals a day. That's pretty weird, but I know that's how I work best. I skip breakfast. I have a massive lunch that's just like salad, essentially, just peppers, onions, spinach, all of that stuff. But that's the way I work best. Figured it out by trial and error, if you like. If I have a big breakfast of a morning, I get to about 11 a.m. I start dropping off and I start losing my focus. So just keep it nice and light. Have a nice meal of an evening, and then that's me done. And understanding how you can optimize your own stuff is just the same as optimizing the lessons you do out on the road. You identify your own strengths and weaknesses there. Just do the same in life.
Some great points. I had no idea where today was going to go, but I think we've
Today went
covered a
randomly off.
vast amount.
Today, yeah, I think we've more covered like philosophy than anything else. But I think as a driver, I think especially for instructors, for new instructors or for PDIs who think that this job is quite easy, it's not, and it does take a physical toll as well as a mental toll. It's quite mentally tiring because you're focusing all the time, even between lessons. You're focused, you're driving, and looking after yourself lets you be the best version. Gives you the ability to reflect, which then gives you the ability to be the best you can be. Whether you're training, whether you've passed, whether you've got a standards checkup coming, whether you've been doing this for decades and you've just got comfy and lazy and you thought, oh, yeah, turn left there, your arms are folded, you're not really canting over to the pupil and engaging and getting the body language. You owe it to yourself to be the best you can be. So do it.
A great point there. So before we go on any other tangents that we may end up on, I've got a new part of the show, some tell me questions. Do you fancy running through these with me?
Yeah, I've been reading them. They've again very philosophical. We're going full philosophical today, and I like it.
We are.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what you can come up with it. So we'll go with the first one then. Can you tell me what car you would drive if it was the only car you could ever drive forever?
Now, is money an object?
Nope.
Money's no object. If money was no object, I'd have to go for a Porsche Panamera because I've always wanted one. And I don't know why I always look on Auto Trader if there's one. There's never any. But then I thought about this question a bit more, and I thought, if it was the only car I could drive forever, would I want that? Would I want something else? And my first car was a 1999 Ford Fiesta. And it was the best car I've ever had in my life. So if I could have one car forever, it would be the Ford Fiesta. The old Mark IV Ford Fiesta in racing green. That'd be my car. You'd hear me coming anyway. Hear me breaking down.
I love that. It's a great answer. And people haven't yet come up with supercars. I guess they're not very practical if you need them forever and it's the only car you've got.
Well, Panamera's got 4 doors. I can fit the kid in the back. I don't mind. That's why I've been looking at them. I'll never afford one, but that's why I've been looking at them. So, yeah.
That's a great answer. So the next one, can you tell me if you could deliver a driving lesson to anyone, who would it be?
The first person who jumped up at this was Max Verstappen, Formula One racing driver. And the reason of that, he was in the newspapers over Christmas. He's what, a 3-time world champion now? I think 2-time world champion. No, 3. He's won a lot of world championships. And he went overseas and they wouldn't give him a Mercedes because he was too young. And they said that they won't be able to insure him on it, even though he's a 2-time Formula One racer. And I thought, that's fantastic, isn't it? That they still won't give it him because he's young. So if I could teach anyone, yeah, it'd be Max Verstappen. We'd have a pretty fun driving lesson, I think. Love to be a fly on the wall.
He must be worth some money to be like, how can you not insure it? He's got to be worth some money.
No, it was so he was overseas. I think it was like with the Red Bull team. They were doing some press thing. And as they were staying there for like 3 weeks, so they rented some cars from like Hertz or whatever. But he didn't fit the bracket for like the higher up band of cars, so he was in like a Fiat Punto or something like that, because that's all that the hire car company would insure him on.
That's crazy.
You know, he probably could just get his own car over there, couldn't he? He's not exactly shy of a few bob, but it was just the irony that they refused to insure him on this car because of his age. It's it's a fun one.
I love that. But a great answer. And you'd have fun, I guess, trying to teach him how to drive. Ready for when he's old enough to drive a Mercedes, eh?
Take him around Manchester City Centre. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be going Formula One speeds. He'd probably be bumper to bumper, but it'd be fun anyway. It'd be fun.
A great answer. So can you tell me the best advice you ever received?
Yeah, I thought long and hard about this. And I think the answer to this question has probably been said 3 or 4 times through our conversation. When I was probably about 3 years deep into this job, and I spoke to a lady called Tina Johnson Cadell. She does car leasing with ADI, NDI, and ex-forces like us. And I spoke to her and I kind of said, I can do lessons, pretty chill, my diary's running well, and I'm a bit bored. It's just everything's plodding, life is happening. And she said to me, make yourself the best version of you that you can be. And that put me on like a 7-year binge of CPD and self-development. And I think if it wasn't for that conversation, I probably wouldn't be doing PDI training. I wouldn't be senior trainer with Drive. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, like speaking at ADI and JC conferences. So yeah, make yourself the best version of you that you can be, because there's a version of you somewhere that is really lazy and doesn't qualify, but there's a version of you that works your socks off and does qualify. So which one do you want to be? So yeah, the best bit of advice, I've got to say that.
Love that. What a great answer, especially based on what we've been talking about as well, just getting after it and developing.
Yeah.
Great one.
Developing doesn't stop, does it? It carries on going forever and ever.
And that reflecting to find what development is going to be the best at that time for you going forwards.
100%.
Great
advice. You can always optimize. You can always, but it's up to you. You can have the best will in the world to develop yourself, but if you don't know where you're going to start developing, it doesn't matter, does it? Anyone can run really quick, but if you're not running towards the finish line, everyone else is going to beat you, even if they're walking. So, weird analogy, but I'm sticking with it.
You're good with these analogies, aren't you?
I'm trying, mate. I'm trying.
I like them. So the next one, can you tell me your favorite book?
Yeah, I've got 2 answers to this one. One's a CPD one. And CPD wise, one of my favorite books was, or is, should I say, Who's in the Driving Seat by Jed Wilmot. Jed lives quite, I say, local to me. He's a Manc. He lives in North Manc, and I went to pick up his book from his house. Like, I think it was the start of lockdown. So I spent a lot of lockdown reading that and kind of pondering and thinking, and do I really do that? Do I not do that? So it was a really good book, a really good, I think, opportunity for me to evaluate myself. So I revisit that one quite a lot. It's quite a good one. I like that one. Along with the other good old books. I love Know Your Traffic Signs. That's one of my favorite books of all time. Have you read the latest version of Know Your Traffic Signs, Josh?
No, and you're going to call me out on here. Go on.
The super latest one came out just before Christmas and includes signage for London's Clean Air Zone and Manchester's Clean Air Zone. And it's just an exhilarating read, mate. It's absolutely, honestly, if you want to entertain yourself for an evening, get yourself Know Your Traffic Signs. Don't even buy it, because the second you buy it, it'll be out of date. Go online, go on gov.uk, Know Your Traffic Signs, become a driving nerd. And yeah, it's a fantastic read. I love it. I love the plot twists as well. 1 minute you're looking at clean air zones, next thing, motorways. You would have never expected that one, would you? Fantastic read. So yeah, Know Your Traffic Signs. #1 book for me. Love it.
There we go. 2 books. They didn't have to be industry specific, but I can see your passion for especially the Know Your Traffic Signs.
I love that. I was thinking about it, and I've read a lot of books over Christmas, but a lot of them are like Stickman, the 10-page blooming pop-up book to me little one. And I thought, yeah, this is a good book. I like this book. But I've probably read it about 400 times over the Christmas break, so it's kind of losing its edge on me now. I know the plot. Whereas Know Your Traffic Signs, you're always going to pick up on different things as you read through it. So yeah. And I'm a nerd, so I like that one. I like that one a lot.
Love it. A lot of time for that.
Yeah.
So next one, can you tell me one message you would give to someone who is considering becoming a driving instructor?
I had to condense this one down. This could have been paragraphs, but if I had to give one message, it would be prepared to give it 100%. It's going to be blood, sweat, and tears. It's probably going to be arguments with your spouse when you're studying and there's a pile of washing that needs doing. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy qualification process, and it does take maximum effort to get qualified with enough of a foundation to be the best instructor you can be. It's not really something you can give 50% effort to, and it just occurs that you pass. It's not just about sitting in a car saying turn left and turn right. If you think it is, this isn't for you. Be prepared to give it 100%. So that would be my message to give to any prospective wannabe PDI, someone who's thinking about becoming a PDI and thinking about getting qualified. Be prepared.
Love that answer. Great one. Can you tell me one piece of advice you would give a student before going for their driving test?
I love this one because I've done this many a time. With that last bit of advice, you can see the pupil isn't as relaxed as they normally are. You can pick up on the body language. And one thing I always used to say was, the examiner's not looking for a 10 out of 10 textbook perfect, part 2 standard, audit standard, police driver training standard drive. All they're asking themselves is the question, would I be happy sharing the roads with Bob? And if the answer is yes, you're going to pass your test. If the answer is no, then you're not going to pass your test. So all you need to do is put that examiner at ease, make him happy that you share the roads with him, and off you go. And I think when you say that, it takes a lot of the pressure off, because there is a lot of pressure, isn't there, approach, especially now. You could be waiting over 3 months for a retest off one serious fault. There's a lot of pressure. So you've got to do your best as an instructor to alleviate that pressure and take it back a step. So that'd be my piece of advice. Put subtitles.
Great piece of advice. I like that
one. Burgle it. Use it, Josh.
I'm taking that one, most definitely. But yeah, I like that one. And there's a lot of pressure. And I find in the leading up to a driving test, it's more about the nerves rather than the skill and the knowledge. They've got
100%.
all of that. It's now just managing it for 40 minutes. Just keep it calm. So,
it's a mindset game, isn't
advice.
it? It's a mindset game. If you think of a pupil who's told every single person when their test is, and their phone's going like the clappers, half of them are saying good luck, half of them are saying, have you passed yet? Do you want to pick me up and take me X, Y, and Z? You don't need that pressure on yourself. You've got enough as it is. Take it easy. Settle yourself in. Realize the examiner's expectations. Give him his expectations. That's all it is.
Great advice. So the last one, can you tell me something that you wish you were better at?
I thought a lot about this one as well. I thought a lot about this one, and what I came up with, and I think this is my reflection, taking this for myself for the next 3 or 4 weeks, is being better at not letting emotions cloud judgment. And this can apply with everything, not just driver training, but I think especially for me in driver training, I can be doing a school run of a morning, I can be going getting the food shopping of a weekend, and I'll see a driver pulling out somewhere, pulling out in front of me. I've got to slam the brakes on, and I'll take it personally. I don't know why I take it. This person has affected me and my family driving down this road, but who actually cares? If they were rushing out, I used to use the example out on the road, and I'm the biggest hypocrite for it, because I used to use the example out on the road, but then I don't use it for myself. And the example I used to use out on the road, it's a controversial one, but I'm going to say it anyway, is I used to say, right, all right, let's imagine that person who's just pulled out. Let's imagine a family member's just rang him. Let's imagine his dad's just rang him. And his dad's just rang him and said, son, I'm in labour, I'm rushing to the hospital, can you meet me there? Now, that's a weird phone call to get. But if I got that phone call, I would probably put my foot down and want to get to the hospital as soon as possible. And chances are we're never going to meet that person again. So should we just let it slide? They go, yeah, that's pretty weird. If his dad's going into labour, that's pretty weird. I'll let it slide. And then I don't take that advice myself. Whereas what I should do is actually let it happen, drop back a bit, check my mirrors, drop back a bit, keep it mellow. I find myself not doing. I don't find myself putting myself in danger, but I find myself harboring emotion to it. And I shouldn't be. So not letting emotions cloud logic is what I would take from that. If you know that, and I suppose I see it in PDIs as well, where I'll say, someone's been unsuccessful on a test, and I'll say, okay, talk to me about what happened. Oh, the examiner's not got a clue. Oh, he's marked me down for this, he's marked me down for this. And he said my route wasn't appropriate, but I wanted to do roundabouts, and I used roundabouts, so it's appropriate. Okay, so what happened on the lesson? Well, people kept stalling. Okay, so is the roundabout route then appropriate for the stalling? Well, no, it's not actually, is it? And especially with what we do as driver trainers, a lot of what we do, we have emotional investment. We really want that learner to pass their test. I really want all of our PDIs to pass their tests. If they don't, I want to work alongside them to find where they can improve and where to optimize. And it's very easy to let emotions cloud the logic. Whereas if you let the logic shine through and you think, okay, so there was a failure to adapt, which then meant a failure to change the route, which would have better targeted the learning need, which would have got you that free, which would have got you a free on lesson plan adaptation, would have got you a free on risk management, because you're talking about the route changing and why it's changing. Letting that logic shine through overpowers the emotion in the end, because actually you think, I can improve that. That's what I need to work on now in my next 7 days of lessons. So yeah, a bit of a weird one, probably a bit of an out of the box one, but not letting emotions cloud judgment is what I put.
It's a good one. I like that. It's we can sometimes do that. I know I'm guilty of it as well. I'll say something to students or I'll help students somewhere, but then at times I'm not doing the thing I'm trying to help them with. So it's an interesting one. I liked your example as well. I don't know if you saw, people watching this back will definitely see. It took me a minute to process what you'd said about the car pulling out in front of you and the dad's gone into labour.
Yeah, it's a fun example. It's a fun
Yeah.
example because I think it really does put pupils in the shoes of that other person. And maybe it's me being from Manchester. I've seen road rage on lessons before. If you search, if you go on something like Manchester Evening News and search learner driver road rage, there's things that you'll see where people have got out of cars. There's one where there was a carjacking of a learner car, and there's so much that can happen in the car that's affected by what happens outside the car that we have to really carefully manage. We have to be the perfect role model for that learner driver. If we get pent up and oh, what's he doing that for? I'll lean over and beep the horn. What message should we give to our pupils? If I was to do that on a lesson, it just wouldn't happen. If I was to do that on a PDI session, I remember, ironically, you mentioned I did my C+E test when I was in the forces, and the examiner leant over to beep the horn. And as he leant over to beep the horn, I missed changing down gear, and that was the only fault he got me on my C+E test. If he hadn't done that, I would have got 0 faults. And that was, wow, well over a decade ago. So I definitely don't bear a grudge to that, Josh. Definitely don't bear a grudge. But it's a good example of how emotions can affect what we actually need to do, what we're there for. So remembering why we're there, and using those emotions as a tool to reflect, but not a tool to decide what actions we're going to take in the heat of the moment, is very critical for driving instructors, I think.
Definitely. And what a great answer. There's
quite in depth.
Some great points here. Most definitely. So before we wrap it up today, there's been lots of great points. Are there any final messages that you'd like to share with people before we disappear today?
I would say, I mean, I wouldn't say we've lacked structure. We've kind of gone down a couple of rabbit holes along the structure that we kind of wanted to go down today. But I think in life you have to do that. And I think, especially if you're a PDI, it's worth exploring all of those avenues. If there's an area that you want to research it. Whether you're at part 1 and you're looking at motorway road signs and markings, whether it's part 2, you're looking at nuances of the road traffic acts, whether it's part 3, you're looking at different learning styles, or perhaps picking up on non-verbal body language. Don't be afraid to invest the time in yourself to develop yourself in those areas. Myself and yourself, Josh, we can speak very well about the experiences we've had with learners because we've gone out there and taught loads of learners. You, as a PDI, will do really well on your part 2 if you've gone out and immersed yourself in the highway code and then immerse yourself in practicing your stuff. So if you give 100%, you'll get 110% back. But if you only give 50%, you'll only get 40% back. And then that won't be enough. So do not underestimate how hard you will work, but do not underestimate the rewards you will reap when you get qualified and you get a pretty nice career out of it. Because it is a good career, isn't it, Josh? It's good fun.
Yes.
It's good fun.
It is great fun. And when you find that balance, when you find the balance, that's when I notice the difference. When I'm working what I want to work and I'm getting the time off that I want off, I'm like, right, this is good. I enjoy it.
Balance, if that's a really good point there, Josh, and I just want to repeat that again. Once you get that balance, it's very easy to find that you're not in balance, but then it's hard to find where the balance is. Work hard to find that balance, especially if you're a qualifier, especially if you're a PDI, because you're balancing loads, you're balancing a job and training and sessions with your trainer and this test that's coming up in 8 weeks and 4 days time, and there's so much pressure. But once you've found that balance, that's where you will thrive. You know where you're happy, you know where your perfect balance is, and you know that you can use that time, that free time. Hey, I'm going to get into some CPD. Hey, I'm going to go and look at this new area. I'm going to look at X, Y, and Z. That's where you really thrive at that point. So get yourself to that point. Find that balance and find what works best for you, because it's going to be different for everyone, isn't it, Josh? Your work balance may be different to mine, maybe different to someone else's. So working hard to find that balance is probably the most important. So yeah, really good point out, Josh.
Another good point.
If anyone listens to anything, listen to that last bit about 30 times. Really take that bit on board about the work-life balance, because work's not shy, is it? It's not shy out there. You can work yourself to the bone, but you don't need to work yourself to the bone.
No.
So find the balance.
Great point. So if anyone wants to find any more information from you or around Drive or what you're up to, where can they go to get more information from you?
Yeah, so they can go to trainwithdrive.co.uk. They can email me on Mike.fowler at trainwithdrive.co.uk. We do have a couple of intelligent instructor masterclasses coming up. The first is in a couple of months' time, so you'll see some emails from Intelligent Instructor about that. The last one we did was pretty much a sellout success. People got a lot of good feedback from it. So if that's something that would interest you, check out Intelligent Instructor or pop me an email and find out what PD we offer, find out what might be right for you. Or if you've got any questions, just pop us an email. We can have a natter, because we're all here to help each other out. So yeah, I'd love to follow up with guys after this. So yeah, definitely.
I love it. We'll get all the link put in the description for everyone. So if they need any information from you, they can find it down in the description. And then, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if people are reaching out. But it's been great talking with you today. I've really appreciated it. Thank you for your
I've
time,
really
Mike.
enjoyed today, mate. Hey, Josh, thanks for having me on. As I say, I hope
It's
people
a pleasure.
benefit from this. And yeah, your content's awesome, mate. So keep up the good work, is what I'll say to you.
Thank
Because I
you.
really enjoy your stuff, and I hope many other people do as well. So
Thank you
thanks
very
again, mate.
much. It's been great to have you.